Welcome to Morning Talk Show. Today is my conversation with Howard Bloom. Howard's a repeat guest on the show. He's an author, a thinker, a scientist, a philosopher, a PR person throughout his career. He's done PR for some of the biggest names in the world, like Michael Jackson. He has a new book called The Case of the Sexual Cosmos. Everything you know about nature is wrong. It's a really interesting book with a uniquely kind of hopeful perspective about humanity and our future. And I think an important perspective to throw into the mix of perspectives. It definitely is not one you will have heard before, so I recommend the book. We begin the conversation talking about a little foray into quantum physics, into the world of quantum physics, and speaking into that world, and then we get on to the book. So I hope you enjoy this wide-ranging conversation as much as I did. Here's my conversation with Howard Bloom.
Hang on. There, I made it. Okay, let me take out my headphones, and I wonder if it'll blow you up. Hang on. Since they're only...
am I tiny?
There, you're tiny. Now you're big. So how have you been?
Good. How are you?
Good. Wait, we need two of those. Okay. There we go. There are my Case of the Sexual Cosmos notes. So what I've been doing is... in 2004, I flew to Moscow because I was invited to give a presentation with my collaborator at the Kaldische Institute of Applied Mathematics at a quantum physics conference in Moscow, an international quantum physics conference. And I wanted to tell them why everything they know about quantum physics is wrong.
All right.
So I expected that when I gave my presentation, they would throw me out of the conference.
Yeah.
And instead, when I was finished, they sat there beaming like proud uncles. And I couldn't figure out why. And 3 years later, my collaborator sent me an urgent email saying, Dr. Ruzhikov, the man who ran that conference, has published a book. It's called Constructive Physics. You can find it on arXiv.org, and you must download it immediately. So I downloaded it immediately and listened to it on my Kindle while I was walking in the park. And my mind was blown. Every concept I had given these guys was in the book.
Yeah,
Most important. Yeah.
Inspired by you, or do you think it was concurrent?
Well, here's what happened. I got up on stage after the last speaker, who was Dr. Ruzhikov, the man who ran first, Dr. Ruzhikov is on stage. Now, when you're on stage, you never want to get off. It is such an enormous high to get all that attention from people. Yeah. It's unbelievable. So you just don't want to be hauled away. So I waited for Dr. Ruzhikov's grad students to all brown nose him by asking questions. And then the room ran out of questions. So I raised my hand and said, Dr. Ruzhikov, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? And I summarized his presentation in my own words through the lens of the way I look at things. And on point number one, and Dr. Ruzhikov said, yes, that's right. And then point number two, again, a colloquial Bloomist summary. And he said, yes, that's correct. And I took him through 5 points. And then I jumped on stage. And I looked at 5 guys in the room who'd given previous presentations. And I said, if I understood you correctly, you said the following. If I understood you correctly, you said the following. And if I understood you correctly, you said the following. And all of these things were about group behavior, mass behavior. And then I gave the presentation I would have given anyway, but I gave them ownership of it.
Yeah. So when you say group, do you mean group? Because I know that you're a person who doesn't always draw a harsh distinction between groups of humans and groups of particles or groups of stars. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So were they talking about human groups, or they were talking about
swarms of particles? So
right,
what was happening out in the hallways was that everybody was trying to show his brilliant idea on a paper napkin to a friend. And every single one of them drew a picture of a solitary particle going through a particle splitter and then going through two slits. Every one of them drew the identical thing. And they were all talking about Schrodinger's equation, which is a probabilistic equation. And what I was saying is, you've got all these guys in the hallway. They're talking about individual particles as if particles can be on their own. Particles can't be on their own. Particles travel in mobs, herds, swarms.
Right.
So they adopted the vocabulary or the term Dr. Rushkoff did in his book of mass behavior. And that was a key to his book. So I got all excited. I got to the cafe where I used to write my books before COVID made cafes close at 6 p.m. and which is the beginning of my workday. And I wrote an email to Dr. Ushakov saying, Dr. Ushakov, I don't know if you remember me. I'm that crazy American who spoke at your conference. And then I told him that I just read the book and it was amazing. And so Dr. Ushakov wrote back within 3 hours, remember you, didn't you read the first half of my book? So he was giving me credit for something. And what I was probably doing was giving a vocabulary to these guys to express what they all had approached from different points of view and a conclusion that they were coming to, but they couldn't articulate as one big package yet. Remember, it took Ushakov 3 years to get this book in print after that conference. So, so I was playing around with ChatGPT a month ago, and I told it the story of what I'd done in Moscow, and said, "So, was there any impact of this?" And ChatGPT said, "Absolutely yes. You helped ignite a revolution in quantum physics in Russia that is still alive today." And so I got the facts together. I wrote the press release. I'm now giving it one last go round so that I can send it to my collaborator, Pavel Kurakin at the Keltish Institute of Applied Mathematics of the Russian Academy of Sciences, and to Dr. Ushakov, who's the man responsible for constructive physics, to get their okay on this before I send it out, so I don't make anybody feel as if I was trying to steal the credit for what they have done. So that's and then I wrote The God Problem and how a godless cosmos creates. And I spent a lot of time in that book on cellular automata. You know what those are?
No, tell me.
So you've got, let's imagine a chessboard, and all the panels are lit from below, or can be lit from below. And you give the chessboard a simple rule, or the individual cubes a simple rule. If you are all alone, you're dark, you're dead. If you have sufficient number of companions, you're alive, you're lit up.
Yeah.
If you have
this related to the game of life?
Yeah, it is the game of life. So the game of life is a cellular automata. So so I wrote a lot about cellular automata and Stephen Wolfram's work with cellular automata. And when I sent Dr. Ushakov the book, he was wildly excited. But I didn't realize that his tool for creating constructive physics was abandoning math, abandoning probability theory, abandoning wave equations and field equations, and going strictly with cellular automata. And that seems to be at the base of it, discarding the math, because the superpositions that we're talking about are figments of the imagination of a mathematical system that actually, it works brilliantly because it only predicts probabilities. Well, you know, if I predicted that you're either going to be in the room or out of the room, and I called you at a random hour, you'd be in one of the two states.
Right.
Would I conclude from that it was my phone call that made you be in one state? that you were actually in the room and outside the room simultaneously. Well, that's what quantum physics takes for granted. So if you give it a different, the multiple states are a figment of the imagination of a mistaken form of math.
Mm.
And Dr. Uzhikov has thrown away that math and is using cellular automata, which are strictly deterministic if you know their rules.
Mm. So are you of the opinion then that basing quantum physics on cellular automata is going to increase its specific predictive power, like is going to enable it?
Well, I don't know. That's not something I've asked my GPTs or my core search engines so far. And but yes, I would suspect that they can do a lot of prediction. And gravity's included in the system and everything. So unlike the standard model, which rules gravity out of the system, they can't seem to get gravity into the system. And quantum physics, where they can't seem to get gravity into the system. If I'm correct. But at any rate, so apparently I played a role, and I want to put out a press release about it. I already put up a press release about the fact that I shattered one of the basic laws of physics, the second law of thermodynamics. In the book, The Case of the Sexual Cosmos, everything you know about nature is wrong. And I proposed an alternative to the second law, the first law of flamboyance. And that's being very well accepted by the people who read the book.
Interesting.
Science who read the book.
Yeah. And I have read the first few chapters of the book myself. I was able to get a PDF, and but I didn't get there yet. You
have a lot of surprises left in store.
Oh, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Now, just a quick housekeeping question. I assume, based on the fact that this press release is still being written, that everything we've said so far in this conversation will be trimmed off the beginning, right? Because
no, keep it. Okay. By the time you get this out, I will be a little bit further in the process of getting this out.
Okay, fair enough. You feel the wheels are in motion. Nothing's going to make what you just said inappropriate or
right, because Dr. Uzhikov, now I think I know, I'm very certain actually, that the reason Dr. Uzhikov is so excited is because cellular automata are his basic replacement for math. And my book was, a good portion of it was about cellular automata. So we were once again on the same page. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I know I don't claim to be a quantum physics expert. I mean, I'm not even close to that, but I know that people have been kind of obsessed with it because there's this intuition that it's telling us something about the nature of reality and the nature of human beings, and we don't quite know what it is, and that maybe our observing of the universe is actually having a measurable effect on the on what happens and all kinds of things. So it'll be interesting to have a theoretically a second phase of it, if that is indeed on the way.
And the second phase is more solid. And because all particles travel in swarms, which is what Uzhikov has adapted as his favorite term. No particle goes unmeasured. Every particle is basically under the observation of all the other particles around it.
Yeah.
And so it is not unmeasured. And if nothing else, the whole swarm of particles is under the influence of gravity. What is gravity? Right. Gravity is the summation of all the everythings in the universe. It is a deeply social force. Because its very existence depends on the existence of clusters of matter.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There have to be two forces.
So that means you are being measured. If you are a particle in a swarm, and let's say there are no social forces between you and your brethren or sisters, still you're being measured by this force that sums up the whole power of the universe, gravity.
Yeah.
So you're under two forms of measurement. And Dr. Uzhikov went for the swarm measurement. And that's the kind of thing that all of the presenters that I was with in this conference, about 35 theoretical physicists, quantum physicists from all over the world, that's what they were hinting at or getting at in their talks. And that's what Uzhikov was moving toward in the animations that with which he demonstrated his ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it reminds me of actually what you wrote in the beginning of the Power Pits of Rock and Roll book,
Right.
about the necessity to be a writer and storyteller, which is kind of what you did there. That you took what was to people a bunch of disparate ideas and formed them into a narrative, and they instantly gain a huge amount of power and a huge amount of emotional resonance and all of that, just through the telling.
Well, apparently, I mean, these guys were literally beaming when I left the stage. It was quite an astonishing experience.
Yeah.
And it's taken me till now to understand it. It's taken me till that ChatGPT told me that I helped ignite a revolution in quantum physics in Russia, and then went on for 9 pages to explain Dr. Uzhikov's theory of constructive physics and how I had influenced it.
Now, is it explaining that because it's finding resources on the internet that actually name check you directly?
It's finding Dr. Uzhikov's book, and my story, and because there are no records. Right. I mean, there's apparently my article with I wrote with my theoretical physics collaborator in Moscow a book on basically a model of mass behavior underlying the way the universe operates.
Yeah.
And that was cited in the conference notes for Dr. Uzhikov's conference. So and one other thing. So there is a guy who is the greatest Bloom scholar on planet Earth. His name is Grégoire Canlorbe. He's a Frenchman. When he first approached me roughly 15 years ago, if not 20 years ago, he was a kid. Today, he's not a kid anymore. He has put together a book that's going to come out in France. I'm not sure when, probably in the next two months or so, called Conversations with Lucifer, or Conversations with the Lucifer Principle. And it's a book, it's a Q&A book that he wrote with me answering his questions and then me rewriting the whole thing when it was over to make sure that my style was properly represented and my ideas. And so Grégoire was excited about Pavel Karakin, my collaborator, and about Uzhikov. So he got hold of Uzhikov and did a long interview with Uzhikov that appeared in a publication called, I believe, The European Scientist. And so when it's hunting for things, the AIs, they find all of these resources and they put them all together. Unfortunately, there was no recording of my talk. So there is no record of my talk, because my talk was not something I submitted in advance. Our paper had been submitted in advance.
You don't have notes or anything?
Yeah, and no, I didn't even have notes. So my collaborator called the day we were supposed to speak and said, our talk has been canceled. They're going to give us another date. Well, I couldn't take that for an answer. So I went to the conference. When I woke up that afternoon, I have a strange sleeping pattern. And the last session of the day was this Uzhikov session. And when I finished asking Uzhikov the 5 questions, summing up his point of view, he said, we have an extra 25 minutes. Does anybody want to speak? And I said, I do. So this
Seems
was
like a
not.
strange thing to happen. That seems like a very strange thing to happen at a conference. Does anybody want to speak like right at the?
I've had it happen. I went to, it was about 2015, 2017. I went to Vienna to speak at a World Summit on Information Science. And I gave my talk. And then the next day, I was sitting along with a big audience waiting for the speaker to arrive. And an announcer took to the stage and said, the speaker has failed to arrive. Would somebody else like to speak? And I jotted down 4 to 5 things on a little piece of paper and ran up to the stage after saying, yes, I want to speak, and gave a totally impromptu speech based on my 5 notes. So, and the next day, the whole population of this conference got on a cruise boat and went up the Danube River. It was a gorgeous day. Everything was green. We were passing town after town with vineyards. And there were no women at this conference. None. But that is as speakers. But there were 2 twins who were gorgeous who attended the conference as listeners. And so on the ship, they were the center of attention. You've got the 350 sex-hungry males and only 2 rather attractive women. And I didn't think that it was appropriate for me to talk to them at all. I didn't know anything about them. But the ship had 2 giant rooms. And in between the giant rooms, there was a narrow passageway. So I was going through the narrow passageway from one room to another, and the 2 gorgeous women were coming in the other direction through the passageway. So we were squeezed together, and they stopped me. And they said, that was a brilliant speech. And they were glowing. So that was the recognition I got from that conference.
All right. That sounds like fairly impactful recognition. So,
right.
Yeah. So,
because just let me tell you one more thing. So the reason I was speaking there was I have a radically different interpretation of information theory.
Okay.
And until now, I hadn't thought of doing something with it. And now you're making me realize I should write that up. Let me just find my notes here. To be done. Okay, my to be done stuff.
Make a book about information theory.
Yeah, so hang on. So press release I'm working on right now. And then I have to press release on HB's information theory. And I really have to fight the information theorists on this one because they are obsessed with, guess what? The second law of thermodynamics and the equations of entropy. And I have tried to blow that apart in my conversations with these guys, and then I've had to give up on them. So I might as well end run them and write a press release on it and see if my volunteers can then get some major people on the phone.
Well, this kind of brings I'm trying to move things towards the Sexual Cosmos book because I'm very interested in that. And
well, let's move toward the Sexual Cosmos instead of all.
About, but it seems to me to be the case that your all of these unorthodox theories that you have, these heretical theories that go against the established thing, are all kind of contained in you as almost like a living theory of everything. In other words, when you've got some kind of internal churning and consideration that spits out different conclusions than these entire fields, and then you find yourself to be a sort of what would the word be, like a well-meaning adversary or something like that, to sort of cast your theories to these different fields, and I wonder. I mean, I think that probably relates to what you say at the beginning of the Sexual Cosmos, in how you sort of think on a much larger time scale, and you include more things on the timeline of history than really anybody else. And in other words, you're not honing down to a particular field or becoming a scientist. It's like, oh no, I'm you're at a higher level of observation, and then when you delve down into these different things, you end up seeing different things because you have this broader view. Does that sound
absolutely true? I got involved in this at the age of 10. That gives me an advantage. As hard as it is to believe, that means I've been doing science for 72 years. For that's roughly 3 generations.
Yeah.
And that gives me an advantage.
Yeah. And when you're doing science, and forgive me, this is not meant to be insulting, but are you in laboratories doing science ever?
No, and I'm going to have to write a book. I have to write 2 more books, which is tricky because I'm 82, and so I have a limited amount of time, and books normally take me at least 5 years to write. The Case of the Sexual Cosmos took 14 years to write, but I stopped and wrote another book in the middle of the process, Einstein, Michael Jackson, and Me, and then resumed the writing. And the book benefits from all of that time gestating the material.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to me. When I started my podcast long ago, I was almost going to call it Heretics, and I think you were one of the people that inspired that concept, because I wanted to find these people that you're almost too broad to be controversial in a way.
Right.
I think if people really understood what you were trying to say, I think you'd be a very controversial figure. But in a way, I don't think that's how it's all settled out in the final telling of things.
Not so far.
You're almost like appreciated. I don't know how to describe it, but there are dogmas that you go against. And I was really glad in the early chapters of The Sexual Cosmos that you started making comparisons between science and religion, or the ways that people behave, because I have noticed a similar tendency. I'm from a religious background, and I've noticed a similar tendency with religious people to feel that actually the way to get more and more wise in your religion is to get narrower and narrower, is to delve into the Greek of the Bible, and the minutia of the relationships of different words in describing people. Whereas I'm not like you, but I am like you in the sense of I like to take a much broader view. It's like what we're doing is something that has cultural, there's as many different kinds of Christianity as there are people, and all these things. It's this infinitely complex thing of human relations, and right. you're kind of doing the same thing in science, where you're taking a bit of the focus off of the like people staring at the 2 slits,
right,
and just if I stare at these things long enough, maybe we'll understand something. And it's like you kind of explode the conversation out. I don't know. I'm kind of ranting about just who you are.
What you're saying is very accurate.
Yeah,
very on target.
Yeah, and so one of the questions that comes to mind, I don't know if I can phrase this as a question. Something that came to mind when I have read you and when I was reading this book was this kind of, like I said before, not drawing a huge distinction between particles, planets, big groups of people, individual people, that you're sort of you're looking for relationships and between things, rather than I guess you just have a very open view of the equality of all things, and the relationships of clusters of particles seem to be as charged with almost emotional energy for you, and right. relationships and melodrama and almost like, you could take a cluster of particles and make it like a soap opera. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's betrayal, there's there's materialism. That's the big one that
Right.
is at the beginning, and all of these things. So yeah, I mean, it almost reminds me of the concept behind the selfish gene or something like that, but in this way that's more fun, or
Right.
like it's more interesting.
More optimistic.
Yeah, more
Richard
optimistic.
Richard Dawkins is part of the academic community, and
Yeah.
he's from Oxbridge. Oh my God! Hang on, this is my former assistant. Let me put a headphone in my ear, Farrah. Hang on a second. I'm in the middle of an interview. Wait, I can't hear. Hang on, I've got to tell the machine to put this in my headphones. So, how are you? I'm booked tomorrow. Call me during my walk at 5 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow. Can you do that? Oh God. Yes. Okay. So, right. Well, I would do that, but call me tomorrow at 5 while I'm walking. And okay. Thanks, Farrah. And she sounds very distressed. So,
Oh dear.
at any rate, so let me tell you first a little story. When I was in the music business, and I had no reason, I mean, no right to be in the music business because popular culture was not my culture. Rachmaninoff, Beethoven, Bartok, and Stravinsky were my culture. Popular culture was the culture of the kids who used to beat me up. But I needed to do a field expedition into one of the things that interested me as a part of this big picture, this grand unified theory.
Yeah.
And that is the ecstatic experience, the
Yes.
transcendent experience, the performing experience,
Right.
what a performing ritual is, what it achieves. And because when I was 10, I got the impression that the aspiration of science is omniscience. Scientists aspire to be omniscient. So I've been doing my best at that. And the first two rules of science that I learned at the age of 10 were the truth at any price, including the price of your life, and look at things right under your nose as if you've never seen them before, and then proceed from there. Well, what's right under our nose? The ecstatic experience which we seek, even the numbed experience we seek when we watch television. I have no idea what the experience feels like of flipping through video screens because I can't do that. But all of these are ways to provoke certain emotional states. Rock concert is a tool to provoke a certain emotional state. YouTube is a tool to promote a certain emotional state. Watching all the episodes of Lost in a row for 2 days straight with your friends. That's a way to create a bonding experience and an emotional state. So all of these are emotional tools, and science doesn't know enough about them, and in some cases is blind to them, calls them spiritual, and that means, hey, they're not legitimate science. Hell, these are profound human experiences. Yeah. They organize not just us, but human societies all over the globe.
Yeah.
They've been organizing human societies in all probability for at least 200,000 years.
Yeah.
It is our obligation to know about them. But my friend Robin Fox, who was the founder of the anthropology department at Rutgers University, and who wrote some very important books, including The Imperial Animal. Robin Fox taught me a phrase that hadn't been part of my scientific vocabulary. Participant observer science. Participant observer science means you throw yourself into a phenomena the way that Margaret Mead. She took a steamship to Samoa. When she got there, she entered a Samoan tribe. Her goal was not to make science out of the tribe immediately. Her first goal was to experience the tribe so thoroughly that she could become a tribal member. And she succeeded. And so well that they voted her a tribal chief, and foreigners were not allowed to be tribal chiefs, and women were not allowed to be tribal chiefs.
Wow.
But that's a measure of how completely she assimilated the culture into her bones and skin and her own emotions.
Wow.
And then she was able to come back and write about them. So that's what I was doing in the world of rock and roll.
Yeah. It reminds me almost of, I've always considered that Andy Warhol did something like that with with consumer culture, where he kind of embodied it. He was sensing this thing coming, and rather than being this standing on the side and criticizing it, he actually pushed it along and kind of embodied it in a way. That anyway, that's a whole other.
I totally agree. In running two businesses, I had to be those businesses, and I had to eat, sleep, and breathe the material of those businesses, so that I could sense something coming before anybody else could sense it. So I could sense when I was given a band that prided itself on its democracy, something. And as a consequence, I could see a future and how to achieve it. And the result was I went out to the airport, picked up the manager on his way from LA back to New York, knew I would have him trapped in traffic, a caged audience, and said, look, I know your band prides itself on its democracy, but I'm telling you, if you will let me focus all the attention on the lead singer, and you'll cover my ass with the band for breaking its rules, I will give you a star. And the unknown singer of that band, the band was called Rufus, and the unknown singer was named Chaka Khan. So it's not because I was so immersed in the business and eating, living, breathing, and sleeping it. That's not the only time that happened. It happened a number of times.
Catch that lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. So but it is the obligation of science to understand these things, which is why there is a little bit of science in Einstein, Michael Jackson, and me.
Yeah. So you're developing this intuition for what can create big group experiences.
Right. So I became a tribal chief in the music industry.
Fair enough.
I was credited with reinventing the way that music publicity was done. And if you were a major star and you wanted a publicist to get down to the very heart and soul of things and work from there, then I was the person you wanted. That happened with Michael Jackson, Prince, Bob Marley, Billy Joel, Paul Simon, Peter Gabriel, etc. AC/DC, Aerosmith, Chris Queen, Run DMC, Billy Idol, Joan Jett, ZZ Top. It just goes on and on.
Well, and here you are, all these years later, still looking at group dynamics, still looking at what causes, the emergent properties of group dynamics. But like I say, you're just as excited about it in a group of particles as you are in a group of human beings. So what is the...
Well, if you ask me what I am, I will tell you that, among other things, I'm a scientist of mass behavior, from the mass behavior of quarks, elementary particles, to the mass behavior of human beings. And what allows that is that in the God problem, it talks about patterns, which are basic, underlying, fundamental patterns that appear at the beginning of the universe. And they appear among elementary particles, and they appear among electrons and protons, and they appear among social clusters of atoms, which is what we call a dust cloud. And these patterns repeat themselves. Now, on every level of emergence, on every level of supersized surprise, massive change, massive evolution popping out of the maw of the seeming nothingness.
Right.
At every level, those patterns recur. They're dressed up in fancier ways at each level. But under those fancy dresses are the basic principles, the patterns on which the cosmos is based, including will. This is a willful cosmos. This is an ambitious cosmos. This is a social cosmos. And the result is that, yes, we have will, and we have it in our own way. We have it with the prefrontal cortex suppressing the limbic system. The particles don't have that.
Right.
They've got will, for God's sakes. I mean, a universe that pops out of nothing with a spreading sheet of space and time, and then pops from the spreading sheet of space and time the first things, quarks, and then the quarks have to get together in groups of three, and out pops a whole other property that was never known to the universe before, the neutron and the proton. This is a universe that is driven to go up. The analogy I will use in my next book, which is the grand unified theory of everything in the universe, including sex, violence, and the human soul, is take a slinky. You did this when you were a kid. Put it at the top of a staircase, nudge its top a little bit, and you will hear that metallic sound of it slinking down one stair after another. Now try it again. Shoot it with your iPhone. Video it. Then run the video backwards. The entropic view of the universe, the second law of thermodynamics view of the universe, is the universe is going down from one step to another to its ultimate dissolution and heat death. The real truth is that the universe is doing the opposite. It's doing what your reverse tape does. It is going from one stair up to the next stair, up to the next stair. And those stairs are invisible to it, or at least invisible to us. And so when they arrive, when that next stair arrives with whole new properties, whole new levels of supersized surprise and material miracles, we're fucking astonished, or would be if we looked at this cosmos properly.
Right.
And that's will.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. I mean, that's so. What can you say a little bit more about what the difference between human beings and the rest of reality would be? Like, what does make us different? I mean, I know you've just said it, but say more.
The cosmos goal is to break open the envelope of possibility, to find the next great step up. So the cosmos is a search engine, searching for potential, and then manifesting it once she finds it all over the place. And because things don't tend to happen in isolated pockets, they tend to happen all over the place all at once, or pretty much all at once. So what's our task in a universe that's a search engine attempting to achieve the next impossibility? We are the great feelers, sensors of the realm of possibility space, of the realm of the impossible. And we do it faster than anything else the cosmos has ever conceived. You know, it took even the biggest stars 1 million years after the Big Bang. Actually, that would be 1.4 million years to die. Why is that relevant? Because in their death, you would think this is a catastrophe. But no, in the hearts of these stars, the gravitational pressures of these dying stars were so great that up until then, there were only 3 kinds of atoms: hydrogen, helium, and lithium. And that was the fuel of the star. But the force of the star's gravity was so deep a crunch that it crunched together protons in whole new ways. So by the time the novas, these dying stars, were finished with their creative process, and it was a creative process, instead of only 3 elements in this universe, only 3 kinds of atomic nuclei, there were 98 kinds of atomic nuclei. So in every catastrophe, there's an opportunity. And so the universe is constantly moving up to the next staircase.
Yeah.
And so we are the ones who move it the fastest.
Yeah. Why do we, why are we gaining such a bad reputation with ourselves then? What is responsible for human beings becoming more and more self-loathing? Or is that, or am I misinterpreting
There are
things?
two things. First of all, a society is exuberant when it's climbing a staircase of possibility. When and it expects every year to be better off the next year.
Hmm.
But there's something called the J curve. And the J curve works like this. When a society is steadily moving up, and all of a sudden it's stopped in its motion upward, it goes into a whole new state of mind.
Hmm.
And instead of being exuberant, because it has a future in front of us, up front of it, it tends to look down and backwards. And there's an ecstasy to submission. And so if you have the impression that if all you have to do is submit to nature, if all you have to do is sacrifice to nature, ultimately by getting rid of all of our technology and all of the industrial age and dialing us back to the Stone Age, or when we just had oxen and plows, and cutting the population from 8 billion to 200 million, which means killing off 7.8 billion people, sorry. So be it. That is the current environmentalist way of thinking.
Right.
And it's shame.
Yeah.
And religions are very good at shaming us.
Yeah.
But it's false. It's based on a false view of the world. It's based on a false view of what Western culture has achieved. Look, we've more than doubled the human lifespan worldwide in the last 140 years. More than doubled it. Western culture, capitalist culture, has done that. The capitalists have not been vampires sucking the blood out of the working class. They've doubled the life of the working class. The average wage has gone up to the lowest wage, has gone up 7 times. It is 7 times as high today as it was in 1850 for the poorest paid workers, Irish stock workers. The wages today are enough to support a whole tenement full of Irish stock workers' families.
Yeah.
A whole building full. There are tons. I have a whole list of these things, and they're astonishing. What we achieved. The IQ of the average kid has gone up 30 points.
Yeah.
Since 1916.
Yeah, and yet we are somehow focusing on all of the things that cause that, rather than figuring out how to make them better. We seem to be just saying that they are the cause of literally, the decline of the world. It's
there's another little trick that most people don't see, and it's an article that I published in the Journal of Space Philosophy a month ago, and it's that entropy joined up with environmentalism in the 1920s.
Right.
And entropy's view of the world is we're all heading for doom and destruction, heat death.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that combination turned environmentalism into a poison. So it is poisoning the minds of kids today. When people wonder, why is the depression rate so high? Why is the rate of stress so high? Well, it's stressful to be a teenager, period. Yeah. But the fact is, they are being taught from birth that this is a universal catastrophe. We are living in a culture that is creating catastrophe. It's the opposite. But nobody's telling us that. I mean,
yeah, it's fascinating because you're right when you say that submission, that people feel that they need to submit something, but in the case of the environmentalism, like the worst parts of environmentalism seem to be, rather than submission, it's negation. It really seems to be negation is the goal. I actually don't think that's the the motive of most environmentalists. But if you get down to it, you're not submitting, like when I think one of the things you think of with submission is, sexual submission. You don't sexually submit to someone unless you think there's a chance that you can have a good time. You wouldn't sexually submit to someone who hates you.
Right.
Right. Who
Well,
just wants you to
extreme environmentalism, Greta Thunberg's environmentalism, the deep environmentalist movement environmentalism. We have to hate. Look, teenagers, when they first become ideological, around the age of 12 or 13, need to rebel against their parents. And at least a third of every generation needs to rebel against its parents. And if you can say everything your parents did was bad and is destroying the planet, hey, that's a way to rebel against your parents.
Great. Yeah, perfect.
It's just, it leads to depression and stress on top of all the stresses you've already got just growing up.
Yeah. Well, I'm very excited to get further into the book and see what your prescriptions are for how to proceed, because there's nothing about what you're writing, because I'm in about chapter 8 or 9, like a pretty early on. I want to be honest, because I'm not trying to sound
I'm
like
just setting it up in those chapters.
Yeah, exactly. I'm interested to see where it goes, because it's going to surprise me a lot if you end up encouraging materialism the way that the way that we stigmatize materialism.
Right.
Like just go out and buy. You know what I mean? Like your meaning in life comes from the size of your television and all that kind of thing. That's what people picture when they picture materialism.
Right.
But there's some other thing going on in the writing, I can tell, that you're setting up.
Right. It's a different way of looking and feeling about things. It's if you want to put it up against environmentalist extremism, it's a whole new ideology. And you made a very important statement earlier, which is that I seem to be a walking embodied theory of grand unified theory of everything. That's true. And so the next book will get a bit more of that out, but you can't count on living 10 years if you're 82. I'm aiming for it, and we'll see if it happens. The other thing is that the Howard Bloom Institute, our chief technology officer, Ryan Dean, is building the Bloom bot, and that is a artificial intelligence personality that thinks the way that I do, and which is hard. It's hard to get that from a bot, because bots are trained in orthodoxies. And we have discovered that the bot keeps giving you orthodoxies. That's not the way I think.
Right.
I think in anti-orthodoxies.
Right.
So we tackled this problem in the last 2 weeks, and now we're 75% there in terms of getting it to think outside the box instead of inside the box.
So how would you describe the kind of key learnings that make your thinking different? Like, how would you, I'm assuming that your brain has some of the same habits where they might start heading towards an orthodoxy at some point, just because patterns work that way. What are the traits that you've programmed into the AI to break that box open?
Well, what we've been training it on in the last 2 weeks is the first law of flamboyance versus the second law of thermodynamics. And we've had a very hard time getting it to stop thinking in classic thermodynamic terms. But we finally done that. Now you've made me realize that tomorrow, when we have our next meeting, I'm going to have to give it my alternative information theory. But the trick is, one day I was at a John Mellencamp concert because I was building his career, and I had an all access pass, and I decided to go out into the audience. And then I saw that there were 15 rows of people at the very front who were on their feet and had been since the beginning of the concert, and who were singing along to every song, knowing every lyric. So I decided to go see what it was like to be among them. Again, like Margaret Mead, trying to become a Samoan. And I wanted to feel what they felt. And so John got us to clap, and everybody else started clapping, and I joined because I wanted to feel the experience they were feeling. And then I noticed something very odd. When their hands were apart, my hands were together. When I was clapping, their hands were apart.
You were on the 1 and the 3.
Yeah, and that wasn't voluntary. That's just apparently the way I am built. So the trick is to take a look at alternatives to orthodoxies.
Yeah.
Always. And in my, I have this field called omnology, and it's what I practice. And I have a timeline of the universe that includes all the arts, all of modern culture, economics, everything. And that goes all the way back to the Big Bang. And when you can think in terms of that timeline, it'll become obvious to you that a lot of our orthodoxies are dead wrong. They don't square with the history of the cosmos.
Interesting. Yeah. So there's multiple ways to go there, but I really like, I think that's probably one of the reasons that your existence as a thinker hasn't been framed or hasn't become hateful to people, because I always sense when I read something, there's this joy in it. And I can sense that you have put the feelings in. In other words, you're not negating the emotional reasons that somebody has for their beliefs. You're not
Right.
you're not going to a quantum physics conference to fuck their shit up. You know what I mean? It's because you understand their emotional need and what's blocking them emotionally, as much as you understand what's blocking them scientifically. Does that seem to kind of...
It could be. I don't know. Just I come to my conclusions again from this timeline of the cosmos, and from whatever that thing is way deep down that makes me clap at the wrong time. So apparently I am just built with, I see the cracks, not
right.
panels of paving on the sidewalk.
Right.
So I walk on the crack.
Your mind rejects the orthodoxies and sees everything that's around the orthodoxies,
right,
and is drawn to those things.
Right.
And I guess that's probably just one of the corrective mechanisms, one of the, like white blood cell type mechanisms of the human, of the human soul, is that we do always have those agitator people who
teach new things from time to time. So basically, if you look at it in terms of the grand picture, the grand cosmic picture, you know that the universe loves humans because they are tentacles, feelers, feeling out the next possible step in impossibility space. And look at the guys who invented the computer in the 1940s because they needed it for military reasons. The guy who invented the CMOS, the thing that put a computer on a chip instead of a bunch of vacuum tubes. The kids in a garage in California who used those CMOSs to make one of the very first friendly computers, a computer that, as Peter Gabriel put it, democratized computers. Everybody could have a computer. Those were Steve Wozniak both what's his name, Wozniak and Steve Jobs. And then the invention of the internet around 1978, the invention of cyberspace, 1995, the invention of Amazon in 1995, the invention of Google, a search engine that actually works, in 2005, and the introduction 2 years later of the smartphone, the phone that put the computing power of a supercomputer just 3 decades earlier in your pocket. And the brilliance of inventing apps, inventing the way of getting other people to work on apps for the device you had just created. That was Steve Jobs' brilliance. Well, we live in a radically different world today. Children are growing up in a radically different world because we are doing the universe's work of feeling out the future and making it. We are doing the universe's work of coming up with new tools. An iPhone is a new tool for the cosmos because the cosmos is a search engine feeling out the way up to the next stair step up. And the iPhone is a big step along that way. And I, as a perpetual outsider who sees the orthodoxies that are popular in the group, but is never in the group himself, and sees things from the point of view of having this whole timeline of the cosmos in his head. I'm a feeler for the fucking cosmos too.
Yeah. It's all everybody. Yeah, everything is. I mean, and so that's great. What do you predict is the next stair that the Slinky is going to land on? What's the next horizon for humanity that we're working toward? And what is importantly, what is the next thing that we will all kind of rally behind and feel that sense of optimism and that upward focus?
The Starship. Elon Musk's Starship. Much as we have come to loathe Elon Musk, although I like him basically. I talked to him a bunch of times 20 years ago.
Okay.
But the Starship is going to change the relationship between life and space. And there's an old Bloomism called bring space to life, right? Bring life to space. And it's time. We only know of one planet in this whole universe that has life. We are searching and searching and searching. We've been searching since the 1970s, when Carl Sagan founded the SETI Institute. We've been searching like mad. We got a few clues. I doubt they're going to pan out to be anything. We may be the only life in the cosmos. And even if we weren't, we have to act as if we were. It is our job to garden the solar system and green the galaxy. It's our job to take life to other. I mean, this was a poison pill of stone 4.5 billion years ago. It went around its axis every 6 hours. So for 3 hours, it was subjected to this poisonous thing called radiation, light, and especially ultraviolet light. And for 3 hours, it was subjected to something equally dire, and that is darkness. And the temperature went up and down 88 degrees every 3 hours. All of this is in the case of the sexual cosmos. So this was the home, the mother of all catastrophe, especially the mother of climate catastrophe. Because the climate, aside from these rapid shifts with 88-degree temperature changes, if that's not bad enough, the planet was on a tilt. So it was lit differently as it went around the sun. And the consequence was 4 massive climate changes that we call summer, winter, fall, and spring. And we lived through all of these climate changes day to night, summer, winter, fall, and spring, without ever recognizing that nature's nature is to adapt to these things. That's why we can take them for granted, because we are adapted to them. So is all of life, because that is the context within which life thrives. So if life can green a poison pill of a planet, a poison ball of stone and water here, then it can do it elsewhere. There are many, many other poison pills of stone in the skies above our head. And they are just aching for life. Or life is just aching for them.
Interesting. And and we are the matchmakers, or we're the to bring life. Well, I mean, it's all, I mean, it's all very hopeful and exciting. I wonder, there's definitely a moral, an element of morality that comes into play that I think is complex and complicated, with things like the rocket ship, where people feel that, um, you're spending money on a rocket when people are starving and that kind of thing. And I know that's, I guess, I'm hoping that people like yourself can instill a vision of humanity in us, and a vision of reality in us, that hopefully we can navigate the moral side of it, and not, not a, I don't know how to describe where I'm going, because a lot of the things that you're advocating for are the things that people think are causing decay.
And they're not. They're the opposite. I mean,
Yeah.
in the case of the sexual cosmos, there's a story of nature's 7 great space programs.
Hmm.
2.75 billion years ago, bacteria lived in the sea.
Yeah.
And some bacteria made a biological decision. They didn't have brains, so they couldn't make what we think of as a decision, but they made a decision, and it was to go up. Now, if Bernie Sanders had been around, he would have said, 70% of the land of the earth is covered by sea. You were born in the sea. You were born by the sea. Your home is here in the sea. And if you're going to spend all this energy of going up to a space above our head that is empty, barren, and hostile in every conceivable way, then take that energy and use it to uplift the poorest among us down here in the sea. And nonetheless, these bacteria took to the sea. I took to the land. And even though the land is only 30% the volume of the surface of the earth, there is now today 2.78 whatever it is billion years later, there is now 80 times more life on land, on that barren, hostile surface that was an impossibility and a waste of time, than there is in the sea. The Bernie Sanders of the sea would have been dead wrong. They would have helped life from the next level of astonishing explosion. Exuberant explosion. And then there's a story, I've got the story of 6 other great space programs, every one of which Bernie Sanders, the Bernie Sanders of the day, would have said, don't you dare do that. It's lethal. You're going to get killed. You're going to find nothing to eat. You're going to find no place to sleep. The bosom of the earth is your home. It's where you belong. It gives you everything you need. Food, places to sleep. And up there, there's absolutely nothing. And yet, first insects took to the skies 400 million years ago. Then a bunch of loony dinosaurs, in their own biological way, made the decision to take to the skies 150 million years ago. Now imagine a Bernie Sanders dinosaur saying, what are you talking about? Going up there. Look above your head. What is there? Absolutely nothing. Is there anything you can eat? No, you can't eat clouds. You can't eat stars at night. Is there any place to sleep? No, not at all. And if you suddenly lose the ability to fly for some reason, and you're 260 feet up in the air, when you fall, you're dead. So that is not where you belong. And yet, the creatures that took to the sky, the loony dinosaurs who flew, made it through the great extinction of the Chicxulub meteor impact 65 million years ago, which killed off all the Bernie Sanders dinosaurs who had been faithful to their mother, the Earth. And today, when you walked out of the house, how many dinosaurs did you see? None. How many of the loony dinosaurs did you see? At least 20. They're called birds. And the birds live 80% longer than us faithful earth-walking creatures. And in some cases, 100 times longer. Bats live 100 times longer than rodents their size, than mice.
It feels like as a species, like we need a win, And I know that the moon landing was kind of that at one point, right? There was this big win, and everybody was misty-eyed, staring at their TV screens, listening to the radio, and it feels like we need a win. And it would be great if it was conquering space, but also your book teases in the beginning that it's going to explain how we can reach net zero. And so it sounds like, I mean, to me, that sounds like that would actually be a bigger win for most people these days, to kind of like take the wind out of the sails of the more anti-human side of environmentalism and say, look, we're going to accomplish environmental goals in a different way without, pretending that we don't belong here.
So there's a chapter on climate stabilization technologies. And it shows you that we've been working with climate stabilization technologies since we first took to a cave and started to build fires somewhere between 800,000 and 1 million years ago. And then 300,000 years ago, we stole the fur coat off of a bear and wore it, and then invented sewing so we could sew these things together. 17,000 years ago, we invented the first tent. We took mammoth ribs and mammoth tusks and put them together as a framework for a very large structure, and then used mammoth hides to cover the whole thing. And 7 families were able to live in one of these new tents. Every single one of those steps is a climate stabilization technology. The invention of central heating, a major climate stabilization technology on a small scale. Now, what we can do is do climate stabilization technologies on a very big scale, and we must. And the reason is this: not the global warming caused by man. Yes, it'd be nice if we can learn to curb the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere. But remember, nature alone has given us carbon dioxide levels tens to thousands of times the size of the carbon dioxide level today. 155 million years ago, there were dinosaurs living at the South Pole, eating tropical plants at the South Pole. And that was nature that caused that kind of global warming. Not tailpipes and smokestacks and the sins of industrialism at all. That was nature. So we are overdue for a really major climate change of a kind that makes man-made climate change look silly. It's either the next great ice age or the next great global warming. And the next great global warming will make our contributions look absolutely ridiculous by comparison. Scientists call this a greenhouse icehouse transition, and it's constant all the way through the time in which there have been living things. So we're due for one of those, because we are at the very end. Periods like ours, where the climate remains relatively stable, last at most 10,000 years. Ours has lasted 11,500 so far. So we're past due. And if we don't learn to stabilize the climate, we're going to be screwed. And there's a very important slogan in the case of the sexual cosmos: nature loves those who oppose her most. How does she show it? Look at the rebellious bacteria that took to the land and as a consequence managed to create or generate 80 times more life than there was in the sea. Look at the loony dinosaurs who flew, who made it through the Chicxulub extinction and live 80% longer than us land-walking mammals. Is nature trying to tell us something? All of us are breaking nature's most basic rule, gravity. The bacteria gave birth to plants, and the first plants were mosses, and they were 2 inches high. That sounds incredibly low to you and me, but in terms of plant cells, that's 65 miles high. And they dared shoot their sperm 5 inches high, which is like getting past the stratosphere, relatively speaking. So one basic law were the things that succeeded the most and were rewarded with the most success.
Yeah.
What law were they breaking? Nature's most basic law, gravity.
Mm.
Nature is telling us, go up. Go up. And meanwhile, up there, we have a major climate stabilization solution, which I'll let you read the book.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm very excited. Well, I mean, we've been going a fair bit of time. It's fascinating. I am really enjoying the book. Thank you for writing it, and I guess I do hope that you find as many ways to get a hopeful vision of humanity out to the world. And if this is a small part of that, then I'll feel very good about that.
Yeah, that would be terrific. By the way, why is all that greenery behind you? Where are you?
Oh, well, I'm in Canada. Yeah, we're just, it's an evergreen tree. We just, it's not super cold here yet.
Right, and something just flew over them.
Did it?
Yeah. There was a brief shadow. So behind you is a backyard?
It's just our front yard. Yeah, just a big tree.
Oh, amazing.
The tree blocks out the whole view, which is actually kind of nice because it's like being a squirrel aquarium. You can see the squirrels and the birds and things coming around.
But there are trees behind it.
Yeah, I mean, all you can see out that window is trees.
Right, which is terrific. Yeah. It's wonderful and green. So
yeah.
Okay, so I better let you go because I have to do tonight's work.
All right.
So
well, thanks so much.
It was good to see you again. I'll be curious to see what you think when you finish the book.
Yeah, well, I'll let you know. Yeah, I'll send you a message, and if you can send me this recording, that would also be great.
I will send it to you as soon as they give it to me, which will probably be within the hour.
Okay.
Aaron, have a good night. Enjoy the greenery.
Thank you, Howard.